When Julius Fabricius, sub-prefect of the Weald, in the days of Diocletian owned our lower river field, he called to him Hobdenius, a Briton of the clay, saying, "What about that river piece for laying in to hay?" And the aged Hobden answered, "I remember as a lad, my father told your father that she wanted draining bad, and the more that you neglect her, the less you'll get her clean. Have it just as you've a mind to, but if I were you, I'd drain." So they drained it long and crossways in the lavish Roman style, till we find among the river drift their flakes of ancient tile, and in drouthy middle August, when the bones of meadows show, we can trace the lines they followed 1600 years ago. Then Julius Fabricius died as even prefects do, and after certain centuries imperial Rome did too. Then did robbers enter Britain from across the northern main, and our lower river field was owned by Ogier the Dane. Well could Ogier work his warboat, well could Ogier wield his brand. Much he knew of foaming waters, not so much of farming land. So he called to him a Hobden of the old unaltered blood, saying, "What about that river piece? She doesn't look no good." And that aged Hobden answered, "'Tain't for me to interfere, but I've known that bit of meadow now for 55 year. Have it just as you've a mind to, but I've proved it time on time. If you want to change her nature, you have got to give her lime." Ogier sent his wains to Lewes 20 hours' solemn walk, and drew back great abundance of the cool grey healing chalk, and old Hobden spread it broadcast, never heeding what was in it, which is why in cleaning ditches now and then we find a flint. Ogier died, his sons grew English, Anglo-Saxon was their name, till out of blossomed Normandy another pirate came, for Duke William conquered England, and divided with his men, and our lower river field he gave to William of Warenne. But the brook, you know her habit, rose one rainy autumn night, and tore down sodden flitches of the bank to left and right. So said William to his bailiff as they rode their dripping rounds, "Hob, what about that river bit? The brook's got up no bounds." And that aged Hobden answered, "'Tain't my business to advise, but you might ha' known 'twould happen from the way the valley lies. Where you can't hold back the water, you must try and save the sile. Have it just as you've a mind to, but if I was you, I'd spile." They spiled along the watercourse with trunks of willow trees, and planks of elms behind them and immortal oaken knees. And when the spates of autumn whirl the gravel beds away, you can see their faithful fragments iron hard in iron clay. Georgii Quinti anno sexto, I who own the river field, am fortified with title deeds attested, signed and sealed, guaranteeing me, my assigns, my executors and heirs, all sorts of powers and profits which are neither mine nor theirs. I have rights of chase and warren, as my dignity requires. I can fish, but Hobden tickles. I can shoot, but Hobden wires. I repair, but he reopens. Certain gaps which men allege have been used by every Hobden since a Hobden swapped a hedge. Shall I dog his morning progress o'er the track betraying dew? Demand his dinner basket into which my pheasant flew? Confiscate his evening faggot under which my conies ran? And summons him to judgment? I would sooner summons Pan. His dead are in the churchyard 30 generations laid. Their names were old in history when the Domesday Book was made. And the passion and the piety and the prowess of his line have seeded, rooted, fruited in some land the law calls mine. Not for any beast that burrows, not for any bird that flies, would I lose his large sound counsel, miss his keen amending eyes. He is bailiff, woodman, wheelwright, field surveyor, engineer, and if flagrantly a poacher, 'tain't for me to interfere. Hob, what about that river bit? I turned to him again, with Fabricius and Ogier and William of Warenne. Have it just as you've a mind to, but, and here he takes command, for whoever pays the taxes, old Miss Husband owns the land. I recently took the time to read an article on the Lotus Eaters website by our editor, Rory. The article was called The Fall of the Shires. It was a tongue-in-cheek analysis of government rewilding initiatives and their likely effect on the British countryside. I highly recommend you check it out, but I bring it up because the article reminded me of this poem by Rudyard Kipling. The British countryside of today bears little resemblance to the countryside of Rudyard Kipling. Many places retain the superficial similarity of lattice-shaped hedgerows around green fields, and there is still great beauty in this land. But this order of things has been relentlessly eroded by government interference, ill-considered subsidy programs like the Common Agricultural Policy, billionaire landowners such as James Dyson and their farming policies, and the difficult economic position in which farmers are placed by powerful supermarkets who can dictate low prices to producers. As a result, small farmers are now largely a thing of the past. The land, too, is no longer viewed as something belonging to the British people. Kipling would likely be horrified to witness swathes of land in cities and the countryside being sold off to foreign millionaires and corporations who have no spiritual connection to Britain whatsoever. It is no longer held in stewardship by magnates like Julius Fabricius or William of Warenne, and there is neither respect nor consideration for the Anglo-Saxon descendants like Hobden who have lived in their villages for 30 generations or more. None of these things has any rational meaning, and so all are swept away by considerations of profit. One could thus see 2 or 3 verses appended to this poem to describe the evolution of the land through 2 world wars and the ravages of globalization. If you would like to try your hand, please go ahead. I look forward to seeing your contributions. Kipling is an unconventional choice for England's first Nobel Prize-winning author. His citation reads, "In consideration of the power of observation, originality of imagination, virility of ideas, and remarkable talent for narration that characterize the creations of this world-famous author." He is equal parts accomplished poet and prose writer, unlike many authors who have seen one side of their literary powers atrophy in attempt to achieve the other. Despite being offered the post of Poet Laureate and his regular presence in the highest circles of English society, Kipling is fundamentally a populist author. Where other poets seek to hide their meaning behind layers of allusion and implication, obscure symbolism and oblique references, Kipling gives his poems a very clear meaning. They are often ballads, telling a straight story with definite characters, in line with a pleasant, catchy rhythm. He makes use of dialects extensively. At times, he concludes the poem by telling you the meaning of it, which occasionally has the same effect as explaining the joke, unnecessary opinionation that weakens the message by making it too starkly obvious. Notwithstanding, there is much to admire in Kipling's opus, and I have chosen several poems on different fields for this series.